What's your name and where are you from?
I'm Eliana and I'm from Poland.
Wow, okay. And how long have you been here?
Been here for 4.5 years in Israel.
And what do you do here in Israel?
I'm a nun. So in normal times, I live in Emmaus Nicopolis, which is an archaeological place where we have Christian pilgrims, but also lots of Israelis come because it's an important place for the Maccabees. And so we have like encounters. So right now, just Israelis, but we still keep going. And so it's like a place of building bridges between maybe Christian and Jewish communities. So it's one of those places that can provide a meeting spot for different worlds.
And how did you choose to come to Israel from Poland? Why here?
I was actually in France, of all places, where I worked as a student chaplain in the south of France, in Toulouse. And the monastery here said, why not for me, but general, they said to people, maybe you would like to come to Israel, like we need help. Okay, good. Let me go. I came actually because with students, I came on a pilgrimage and then I came again for a conference. The second time I came, it was longer and I felt at home and I was like, let's do it. You know.
The Middle East is a little similar to Poland?
A lot, actually.
Really?
For me, I feel more at home here than in France.
Wow.
But it's just the food and the mentality is closer to our mentality.
In what way? Can you speak more on that?
Just people being really open and honest and very spontaneous and very generous. And, like I remember my first month in Israel. I was someone asked me to buy something very small in the shop called Max. It was just before the school started. There was a huge line to the counter, maybe 7 ladies with trolleys full to the brim, and I had just this one bag. And one lady said, "Okay, ladies, this girl has almost nothing. Are you all okay that she passes in front of us?" And everyone was okay. And that was one of my first meetings of the Israeli society.
Wow.
Like, living in not as a visitor, and I felt at home. We do the same thing in Poland, I think, but not in France.
Not in France. Eliana, what's something that people would be very surprised to hear about being a nun? What's it like?
It's more exciting and than we think.
Really?
People think it's really boring. Even my parents thought, "Oh, what a waste of life" at first, and now they're like, "You actually have a really interesting life because you get to meet interesting people. You don't always stay in the same place." I also lived in New Zealand. I was in France. Now I'm in Israel. Never a dull moment, we could say. You can say, "Hey, I want to go to this country." Sometimes you can even choose to do a job. Or I thought I wouldn't study, but I got 2 extra degrees since I joined. So, life is interesting.
I guess we were touching on the question before, but what's happiness? What's happiness to you?
I think happiness for me is really having God's presence in my life, and I find Him in the Word of God. And I think here the Christian and Jewish world finds like a meeting point, because we believe that God is this uncreated life, and He left the sparkles of His presence in the Word of God. And as you study the Word, you actually dig out or find the pearls or some of those sparks of His presence, and they illuminate your life and change your life. Often when I study the Bible with my Jewish friends, we find that we can enrich each other very much, and I'm very grateful for Jewish wisdom.
Wow.
That's one of the perks of living
Really?
in Israel.
How does Jewish wisdom play a role in your studies and your belief?
There are many difficult passages for Christians in the Bible, and I believe you can only understand them when you study them through a Jewish lens, because the vocabulary is different. Obviously, the translation will never give the original meaning of the word. You get to see the cultural, historical background. You discover the hidden meanings, the sod. And the passages that seem to be obscure, they're full of light.
Really?
And then they really make your life more, like, I dare say, integral, like you're more one with God. So because God is one, Shema Israel, the whole life becomes one and ordered. So your thoughts are, you have less pestering thoughts. You just become more simple with people and yourself.
I was kind of surprised to hear that looking it through a Jewish lens, actually.
Absolutely changes everything. Even the New Testament, you cannot fully understand the New Testament without Jewish lens. It was written by Jews. So And it was actually one of the reproaches of the Biblical Commission of the Vatican at the beginning of year 2000. Christianized or gentilized the Bible, including the New Testament, so much that we forgot that it was written by the Jewish people and we cannot understand. So there's a whole new movement in the church saying, we should go back to the roots, and you will never understand the more obscure inverted commas parts of the Bible without the Jewish lens.
How long have you been here?
4.5 years.
In
Yeah.
Israel?
Yeah. I came here for the war and the COVID and more wars.
What's something that maybe people don't really understand about living here that maybe you'd like to share after living here for so many years and through many different experiences?
I think it's, sometimes people say, oh my gosh, you live in Israel, and it's a normal country. Sometimes someone says to me, oh, you live in a war country. I'm like, okay, guys, I'm from Poland. We have problems on the Belarusian border. There's a country trying to hijack our border. Media don't speak about it because there's so much focus on Israel right now. But there's, lots of scary stuff happening in Europe as well.
Yeah.
And, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
True.
I must say, with all the ADF soldiers and police here, I sometimes feel more secure than I ever felt in France, where we had spontaneous stabbings of priests in the church by some, extremists, etc.
Yeah.
And I have never had that kind of anxiety living in
Yeah.
Israel, actually, strangely. We had some trouble in France when I was there. It was an easy time when I was there. Whenever I was going home on holidays, it felt great, and I felt I was stressed.
Yeah.
But strangely, I didn't have the same stress here. It was a different kind of stress because, when you have the rockets maybe and you have to go to Miklat, but otherwise, the people are great.
What is a dream of yours?
I think dream of mine would be really, it's a utopia, obviously, to be in a world where people can see really humanity in another person, no matter which religion we come from, if we're black or white, Jewish or Gentile, whatever, that we just see that the other person is human and can teach us something and enrich our lives. That would be my dream.
How would you go about doing that?
I believe that things are possible. We spoke before about this story that there was this boy in Gaza who was writing letters to the Vatican that were published in L'Osservatore Romano, and he was never negative. Like he said, our humanity is bigger, our hope is bigger. And even now that he's been wounded, and thanks to some Israeli friends moved to Israel for treatment, he still says, even though he was wounded by an IDF rocket, he's not, his attitude is not that of hatred, but continues to be that of hope. And he says we need to have hope and we continue to see humanity in the other, because this is how we build a better world. I'm obviously called to a different place, but I want to maintain the same hope and the same perspective. And I hope we can just live together and study together.
You shared a really resilient story, if you don't mind sharing about, we're talking about positivity.
Close death experience, because when I was a student, I found out that I was gravely ill and I had to be operated, and the doctor said maybe you have 4 weeks to live. And life changes dramatically when you hear that, and I have 4 weeks to be operated on. And so I decided not to give up on life. I was still a student, and I said, no, in case I survive this operation, I need to go back to the uni. I need to go. But every day I would take a step back from life. I'd get off the bus or the tram 1 or 2 stops before the uni, and I would just go slowly, enjoying the atmosphere, the air, people's faces and friends, and enjoying every moment. And I think that taught me as well that life is a fleeting thing, and I never take relationships for granted. And this is why I came out this evening as well, to enjoy the moment. Just to enjoy the moment and enjoy the space and breathe in the air and soak it up. And this is a precious time.
Eliana, if you could maybe describe yourself in a line or two, how would you describe who you are?
A friend of God. That's what I would like to be. A friend of God who's a friend to other people.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
No worries.